Well, good afternoon, and welcome to our 2021 Engagement Scholarship Research Creative Activities Grant Program. This is our second group of grantees from 2021, so they have completed their projects, and they're going to share with us some exciting outcomes that they have. My name is Lynette Overby. I am the chair of the Scholarship Committee for the Engagement Scholarship Consortium. So we're going to begin with Joanne Marciano of Michigan State University. Are we going to make a difference? Take an action toward change with youth through community-based participatory action research.
Great. Thank you very much for that introduction. And I am honored to be here today and very grateful for the Engagement and Scholarship Consortium support of my project. Are we going to make a difference? Taking action towards change with youth through community-based participatory action research. So the first part of the title comes from a question raised by Jake, a Lebanese American high school student who participates in the Youth Voices Project, a youth participatory action research initiative I've led in partnership with the youth director at a subsidized housing community here in Michigan since September of 2019. We meet weekly with a group of middle and high school students to support their examination of issues of importance to them in their community. In the summer of 2020, at a time of increased attention to issues of racial justice, Jake and the rest of the youth who participate in the project chose to shift the focus of their ongoing action research to spread awareness of the Black Lives Matter movement among residents of their multiracial and multi-ethnic housing community. They decided to read children's and adult literature focused on issues of racial justice and to learn more about the principles of the Black Lives Matter movement. And these are some of the texts that they selected to read. And that's where Jake's question comes in. During one of our weekly meetings, as the youth considered how they might share the books and principles with the community, Jake said, another question we can maybe ask ourselves is, are we going to make a difference with the book club, or are we just going to discuss about the books and problems, like we do at school? So with support of the Engagement Scholarship Consortium, this research project centered Jake's question by directly supporting youth's attempt to, quote, make a difference. Specifically, the project assisted the partnering community-based organization in offering culturally responsive, sustaining out-of-school programming that builds with youth participants' desires to increase understandings of and to take action to address systemic racism in the culturally diverse subsidized housing community where they live. The project also supported youth in facilitating community conversations and art-based literacy projects that they designed and piloted during the 2020-2021 academic year. And it amplified youth participants' voices as they position themselves as agents of change in their community and beyond. So funding provided by the Engagement Scholarship Consortium was used to provide stipends to 10 youth participants. And each of the youth received $150 per semester to attend the weekly 2-hour-long YPAR meetings. And this funding, the youth told us, was particularly helpful to them as families in the housing community, more than 85% of them earn less than $10,000 per year. So the stipends were really helpful in supporting the youth in participating. And while we plan to use the rest of the funds provided by ESC to take the youth who are first generation college applicants by train to Chicago to tour a college campus and meet with high school students and teachers seeking to enact YPAR projects in their own communities, COVID restrictions have made travel really challenging. As a result, we were able to get permission to use the remaining funds to continue providing stipends for youth participants during the current fall 2022 semester. I just met with the youth last night and they are really, really excited to continue their work. And I'll close just by adding that the youth co-authored and co-presented a session at the Michigan College Access Network's annual meeting in October of last year. And their presentation was titled Supporting College Readiness Through Youth Participatory Action Research. And this is just some of the youth-generated artifacts that they created as a part of our work together. And this is just a list of some of the research projects that have come out and presentations that we have presented using data that was collected during the academic year last year, focusing during the time that we were able to work with the youth with the support of the Engagement Scholarship Consortium. So I'll pause there. I know I think I stayed within my time limit. So thank you very much. And I'm really excited to engage in further conversation after all of the presenters have shared their work.
Thank you so much. I love seeing the dissemination of this work in so many ways, through academic as well as community. Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next presenter is Patricia Briar from Minnesota State University in Mankato. Take Charge, Your Well-Being and Wellness is her project.
Thank you for the introduction. My name is Pat Briar-Weltis, and I am a pediatric nurse practitioner and associate professor at Minnesota State University, Mankato. As part of my role there, I actually direct a school-based health center, and that school the clinic is strategically placed in a early childhood center, but we're right next to the high school, walking distance from the middle school. And I can tell you, just to put this project into context, that at the nearby elementary school, 85% of the children are on free and reduced lunches. And at the middle school and high school, it's still over 50%, though better than the high numbers that we're seeing in the elementary school. So the background on this project is that we looked at the Healthy People 2030, as well as the CDC's concerns, and tied that in with what we were seeing in the community as a healthcare facility and as nurse practitioners, and brought those concerns together and thought, how can we address those? And we came up with this proposal, which was funded by the Engagement Scholarship Consortium, and we called it Take Charge, Your Wellness and Well-Being. So this is a multidisciplinary program, and the purpose was to develop, implement, and evaluate a program that addressed some of those concerns that I mentioned in the first slide. Our program development was multidisciplinary in that it involved health and physical education student, teachers, and faculty, nutrition student and faculty, social work, mental health graduate students and faculty, nursing students and faculty, and a DNP student who acted as our project coordinator. In terms of program implementation, we ran 6 interactive and didactic sessions. And because these are middle schoolers and it was an after-school program, you can guess most of it was interactive. But we talked about the importance of physical activity, healthy habits and relationships, mental health, self-care, healthy eating, talked about rethinking what you drink, the S's of success. We addressed stress management, sleep, screen time, and we talked about tobacco and safety, including healthy relationships. Our measurements were that we looked at a self-efficacy for health practices tool, as well as a well-being assessment. The self-efficacy tool I learned about actually at the Engagement Scholarship Consortium last year, and reached out to the faculty that had developed it, and she graciously offered that we could use it in our research as well. We also had weekly journals that were used for reflection. And as you can see from this slide, some of the entries said, I learned that I have a happy space where you can take 5 minutes of time and think about it. And when I'm stressed, I can go there. I found my happy place and I will go there when I'm upset or stressed. And wellness is more than not being sick. The journals were really entertaining to read, as you can imagine, with middle school authors. We capped the program at 18 students, and that was because of we wanted to build relationships with them. And initially only 12 students participated in the pre-intervention survey, though we had 18 there. We did not make that mandatory. It was optional. And then all the children journaled their response to the sessions weekly. So the program had a positive impact in looking at the use of food labels, behaviors focusing on mental well-being, behaviors focused on stress management, and confidence in caring for their own health. The implications of this program, Take Charge addresses critical needs impacting youth and well-being. The schools were an ideal site for health promotion intervention, and actually, I think have kind of helped tie us as a healthcare facility in the school community as well. That's my time's up. The emphasis on self-efficacy encourages, we hope, sustainability. The goal of multidisciplinary, multi-component programming is to empower students in personal promotion of well-being and as change agents in their home, family, and school and community. And we think that that program, thanks to the funding from the Engagement Scholarship Consortium, was successful in reaching that goal. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Patricia. Our next presenter is Michael Kimball from the University of Northern Colorado, and he will present Heritage Conversation Partners Project.
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for joining me. Lynette, can I be heard okay? Okay, great. So I'm, presenting on the Heritage Conversation Partners Project, which we conducted primarily last spring during the spring semester with students in my Applied Anthropology Methods class. This is a collaboration between those students and English language learners, primarily immigrants from countries such as Mexico and El Salvador, and a couple of South American countries, which I'll point out very quickly in a slide coming up. These are my students, and I also want to bring attention to the woman on the far right there in the white sweater, Karen Bates. She was my community partner on this, and without Engagement Scholarship Consortium support, grant support, this would not have been possible, because she was able to participate thanks to a stipend. Also, I had 2 research assistants that made the project possible as well, undergraduate research assistants. These are the countries that were represented in our project. I'll get to the point of why they were connecting in a moment, but you can see here the United States, Mexico, Venezuela, and Brazil represented. Most of our participants were living currently in the United States, but these are their countries of origin. One of them was still living in Brazil and looking to immigrate to the United States very soon. We have 3 research questions that we addressed with this project. First one is, can a virtual cultural heritage exchange improve English language proficiency? Second one is, can it build social bonds and bridges? And by this, I mean social bonds between immigrant participants, and then also sort of folks who have somewhat similar experience as immigrants. And then also, can it build social bridges between members of the dominant culture, that is to say my students, and the English language learner participants? And finally, the third question is, can such a heritage exchange raise heritage consciousness? And by that, I mean an awareness of one's own cultural heritage and a sense of agency around it, what one values and what one is willing to let go through that process of trying to socially integrate. One of the, of course, biggest challenges for members of immigrant and refugee communities, certainly the one in Northern Colorado that we are connected with for this project, is social integration. And we're trying to see what relationship that has to the preservation and also the loss of cultural heritage. This is was a virtual heritage exchange done through Zoom, 7 Zoom sessions as part of my class. On the left, you see Dora from Venezuela, who's showing my students how to make traditional arepas. And then you see on the right, some of my students sharing aspects of their own cultural heritage. So we really emphasized reciprocity, of a kind of level playing field in terms of the sharing of cultural heritage with each other. This is one example of, this is week 2, the kinds of questions that might be used or incorporated into pretty open-ended informal conversations amongst the students and the ELL participants, English language learning participants. And this is an idea of the data that we collected. There were focus groups after 2 of these 7 sessions that were recorded. We had auto-generated Zoom transcripts from those sessions and from all of the conversations. And so the students had to clean them up, which was a considerable amount of work, and analyze them using content or qualitative analysis. A coding manual for reference was created. And then also we used these results to address those 3 research questions I mentioned at the beginning. And then we also had separate assessments of the participants' experience and their suggestions for project improvements. And finally, we did what we call hot washes with the students to find out what was working and what was not working. And finally, to answer our research questions, we have some answers for you. One is that our evidence does suggest that yes, English language proficiency did improve. Yes, this cultural heritage, a virtual cultural heritage exchange can build and does build social bonds and bridges, some of them lasting. And finally, maybe on the heritage consciousness. We have more work to do on that, and we're excited to keep going. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was a very interesting project, and really could see the reciprocity that you talked about. Our next presentation is going to be a recorded presentation by my colleague from University of Delaware, Kevin Shortall, will share this presentation by Pengyu Shi of Purdue University, A Community Approach for Racial Justice, Decision Analytics.
Dear all, thank you so much for this great opportunity for me to present my supported research on using fair machine learning and decision optimization to facilitate the community-based approach for the criminal justice system. Overcrowding in correctional facility has always been one of the major concerns in the justice system. The opioid pandemic has exacerbated this problem. Indeed, drug-related offenses are one of the most common reasons for arrest in the United States, and individuals suffering from substance use disorder are one of the major contributors to overcrowding in the correctional facilities. Traditional solution to these offenders is incarceration. However, it has been shown that incarcerating these individuals with substance use problem actually increases their rates of relapse, recidivism, and overdose upon release. The traditional solution only compounds the problem and creates a vicious cycle between substance abuse and incarceration because of the lack of support for this individual upon their release and the lack of support for them to reintegrate into the community. Therefore, alternative solutions have been advocated. Community-based approach are one of these alternative solutions. Among that, community correction centers provide alternative to jail and incarceration and help individuals who have non-violent offenses and who also have substance abuse problem to have access to community support and medical assisted treatment. However, community corrections often also face the following challenges. The capacity for treatment is limited, and more often, it is unclear whether the current capacity is enough for the people who actually need this type of incarceration alternatives. The capacity limit may cause disparities to access to this community support and treatment among different subgroups. Moreover, the the treatment effects are not well documented. Thanks to the Regenstrief Center for Healthcare Engineering at Purdue, we built a great connection with our community partner, Tippecanoe Community Correction Center, with Jason Huber as the director and the sheriff's department and the Sheriff Goldsmith. In this research, we take 2 steps. The first step is to help our community partner to connect different databases and get data pre-processing. Then we analyze the data and build prediction model to understand the key risk factors that contribute to the recidivism risk and the program effectiveness among different individuals. To facilitate the use of our research for community partners, we also built a dashboard to visualize the data and our data analysis results. Then in the second step, we build a system-wide simulation model to reflect the current program utilization and resource requirement in the system, in the entire system. We then use decision optimization to derive priority rules on who to prioritize to receive treatment resources when the capacity is not sufficient. During this optimization, we ensure the fairness among different subgroups. This slide shows a screenshot of our built dashboard. With the great efforts from the RA Griffin, kindly supported by the ESC grant, and my collaborator Nicole Adams from the School of Nursing at Purdue. Other deliverables from this supported research include 2 publications and also monthly meetings with our community partner to disseminate our findings and support their decision-making, such as staffing decision and budget planning. Finally, I would like to express my great gratitude to the support of this ESC grant. It laid a very important foundation for me to start this stream of important research, where the funding has been critical to support the research assistant who has analyzed the data, built the machine learning model, and the dashboard. This research also lays the foundation to strengthen the connection with our community partners and provide the preliminary work for us to apply for larger external grant, which is undergoing.
I'm very happy to see how this grant will allow her to do more work in the future. Our next presenter is Maru Gonzalez from North Carolina State University. Her project, pilot testing the hashtag Pass the Mic Youth curriculum to nurture youth-led community engagement.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to be here. And first, I'd like to thank the Engage Scholarship Consortium for providing the funding that made this project possible. My name is Maru Gonzalez. I'm an assistant professor at North Carolina State University, and along with my colleague, Dr. Christy Bird, we implemented the pilot testing the Pass the Mic Youth curriculum to nurture youth-led community engagement. And the purpose was really to amplify young people's voices and nurture youth-led community engagement through collaboration and storytelling. So the rationale was really twofold. First, research shows us that civic engagement, youth voice, and community belonging have a positive and significant impact on young people's social, emotional, and academic well-being. And we also know that storytelling has been shown to reduce prejudice, nurture self-worth, and drive social action. So we really wanted to center youth storytelling and use that as an entry point for greater community engagement and social change efforts. So our project objectives were as follows. First, to foster a caring and connected learning community. Second, to develop critical reflection about social justice issues. Third, to nurture political efficacy, or the belief in one's capacity to create meaningful social change. And then 4, to motivate social action and community engagement through storytelling and collaboration. Our audience was youth between the ages of 14 and 18 in North Carolina, and the project started in September of 2021. We worked with 4-H, and specifically Wake County 4-H, Wake County being part of the Raleigh-Durham area, really the Raleigh area and the metropolitan Raleigh. And we decided to work with 4-H because they are the largest youth serving organization in the United States. They have a lot of networks, a lot of connections to different community organizations within Raleigh. And so they were really able to help with recruitment. And then also they have a really deep-seated knowledge of positive youth development. So the methods that we used or our process was really implementing the curriculum with 4 groups of youth. 3 of those groups were after school, so that occurred during the school year. And then 1 group was structured as a 5-day immersive summer camp. These are some of the photos, and you can see in the photo on the right, for example, youth were in the recording booth because they learned podcasting as one of the storytelling formats that they could use. Our evaluations included a pre and post test and formative evaluations. The items for the pre and post test were drawn from the following instruments. One was the Positive Youth Development Student Questionnaire short version, and then the other one was the development of the short critical consciousness scale. And the results demonstrated a substantial increase in the 5 C's of positive youth development. So caring, connection, character, competence, and confidence. Critical reflection and political efficacy. The most significant change was actually in the area of political efficacy. So on items in the pre and post survey, for example, one of the items was, my voice is worthy of being heard and sharing. Pre and post test, the scores were much, much lower than the post test, which really shows an increase in political efficacy, that by the end of the program, young people really believed in their own capacity to create change. And critical reflection, also, we saw a lot of significant changes there as well. They really felt like they were part of a community, which indicates a change in the 5 C's of positive youth development. The least change was seen in the area of critical action, but that's to be expected because behavior always takes longer to change. But we're confident that with that foundation of those critical reflection skills, as well as the political efficacy, that critical action piece will follow. And then we also, this was sort of an unintended result of the project, we were able to support the creation of 7 youth-led podcasts because we had equipment to be able to provide youth so that they could create, so they could share their stories by creating their own youth-centered podcasts. So our next steps include an article, which is in review in the Journal of Extension, modifications that are being made to the curriculum that are based on the piloting data. We have plans to pilot the curriculum in rural communities because, the youth in rural communities have different experiences than the young people that we've been working with in Wake County. And so having that data will be really important. And one of the things that developed from this collaboration is we were so inspired on youth from the youth stories and just saw that as such an effective vehicle for at least creating that dialogue for change that we're talking about how else can we work together? How can we build on this momentum? And so we applied and were granted a TEDx youth license, and we have an event scheduled in the spring, and that was really born out of this project. And then finally, we have plans to publish and distribute the curriculum when all the pilot testing is said and done. So that is it. Thank you again to the Engage Scholarship Consortium for making this project possible.
Well, thank you, Maru. Very interesting project with, I can see, lots of future applications. Our final presenter is Virginia Cope of The Ohio State University, the Mardi Gras Indians of New Orleans, Cultural Preservation Amid a Pandemic.
Thank you for inviting me to present on our work, and of course for the grant that gave me the research to present. The Mardi Gras Indians, if it's a term you haven't heard before, it's the description of a Black parading tradition in New Orleans. It goes back to the 19th century. It was meant as a counter tradition to the traditional white Mardi Gras, for which Blacks were not allowed to participate. It is a neighborhood-based parading tradition with a very strong communal and artistic element to it. The the Black Indians, which is one of the terms used, alternative term. The Black Indians each year spend the entire year in neighborhoods, groups that they formed, creating elaborate artistic suits that they wear on Mardi Gras morning and a couple of other days for parades in their neighborhoods, not down St. Charles Avenue. So we have at the Ohio State Newark campus, groups of students and faculty have partnered with some of the Mardi Gras Indian groups and organizations in New Orleans for the past 10 years. We've created 2 documentaries giving voice to the legendary leaders called the Chiefs of the Mardi Gras Indians, who had previously, particularly pre-Katrina, gotten very little visibility in scholarly or pop culture. And a second film on the Queens, who had even less visibility, the female leaders of these parading groups. Pandemic hit, it shut down the parades, as you well know, of any kind of parade, right? Much less the kind of community gatherings that go year long as part of this this cultural group. We wanted to return to New Orleans to document the impact of the pandemic on this centuries old artistic and cultural tradition because of structural inequality, structural racism, and the communal nature of the tradition. Of course, the pandemic hit this group quite severely. In addition to canceled parades, legendary leaders and longstanding members of the tradition died, yet were not able to participate in the traditional funeral. Second lines, nearly all members of the tradition lost income and jobs, both gigs and their regular jobs, right? So we wanted to bring students down to do a third documentary to preserve the information and gather information on this tradition to enhance students' knowledge of Black culture and tradition, cultural competency, research, and filmmaking skills. These are the first 2 documentaries we did, one of which was nominated for an Emmy. So here are our students down in New Orleans. This grant funded our travel to New Orleans to do 18 interviews and film 3 different events. So every year the Mardi Gras Indians come out in their suits, as they call them, on Mardi Gras Day. But then there are 2 other events they call Super Sunday is one of them, but the other one is on St. Joseph's Night. They come out in their suits, they play music, they have this kind of tradition of rivalry where the different groups will run into each other on the streets and kind of compete with song and chants and back talk about whose suit is the prettiest. Our students were there to document all of these events, as well as do 18 individual interviews with members of the different groups. CBS News saw us there, and they didn't get all the footage they needed for something they were doing. So they begged us for some of our students' footage from Super Sunday, which appeared on a story they did back in March. My partner, T. Morris, and I have a publication forthcoming on this work in Scholar and Feminist Online about the Queens in particular. And of course, the students are now busily in post-production, editing the many, many hours of footage that they gathered into a 22-minute film that will be aired starting in 2023, we hope, on the PBS affiliate New Orleans, WYES, along with our other 2 documentaries, which have been airing there every year since we created them. I wanted to end with a quote to capture what we discovered in our research. This is Cherise Harrison Nelson, the legendary leader of the Guardians of the Flame tribe. And she is an eloquent historian of the tradition. And she said very simply to my students, to our students, we find a way. So thank you for allowing me to present on this.
Thank you, Virginia. and I look forward to seeing the documentary when it's completed. I want to invite all of the presenters to turn their cameras on and join us here. I'm going to put my gallery view on. So one of the things we're considering, thinking about this grant program, now it's our 4th year of the program. We want to make sure it really is helping. There's a small amount of money, but we certainly want to make sure it is being used and is helping our faculty who receive these. So I've sent you a few questions and anybody can answer. The first one is, how did this grant support your ability to conduct engaged scholarship at your university? Anyone want to share?
I'll go first, if that's
Okay.
okay. For us, it really opened 2 doors that had been closed for a long time. One was the opportunity within the College of Allied Health and Nursing to collaborate on a project. And it was, I think, exciting for us as faculty, but also for the students who worked on the grant and the project. And the other thing was we've been in the school district now for 5 years as a school-based health center, but it helped them become more aware of the potential that's probably not tapped in terms of the resources and the collaboration that we can do.
Thank you, Patricia. Anyone else want to? I see, Virginia, you have your mic off. Did you want to say something?
Oh, well, I mean, very simply, this grant allowed 5 students, 2 faculty members, and a filmmaker to return to New Orleans and capture these voices in March of, last year. The story of the pandemic and the strength and resilience of a group of people attempting to preserve a culture that is a century old. And those 18 hours of footage were not only and interviews, not only allowed us to create the film, but of course provided an enormous amount of research materials that are available not only to us but to libraries and others.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? Oh, Joanne.
I had really quick, I just want to say, so the funding that I received from the Engagement Scholarship Consortium, we put all of that funding back into the hands of the youth who participate in the project. And I think that it really showed the students that people care about what they have to say. Oftentimes, students are in school all day where they're kind of talked at, unfortunately. And the community center is a space where the kids are able to just, interact differently. And for us to be able to say to them, listen, we got a grant because people want to know what your thoughts are about these things. It was really, transformative for some of the kids to be oh my goodness, people really do want to know what it is that we have to say. And as we think about scaffolding youth into researcher roles, specifically in a youth participatory action research initiative, it's really exciting to show students that yes, this is a job that people have, that I have, right? That we can, just demystify some of that process for them. A lot of the youth that I've worked with tend to think of researchers as folks in white lab coats. So really, working with them to understand that their experiences and perspectives matter. And I think that the funding really provided an opportunity to show the students that their work is meaningful and it's valued in other spaces. So I'm just really grateful to be able to, get those resources into their hands.
Well, thank you. That sounds like something that researchers don't always think about, the assets that are in our community, in our youth, that we can co-create work with, which brings me to my next question. How did this grant support your ability to co-create projects with community partners? And you probably have already answered that in some way, but does anybody want to elaborate on that? Michael?
Sure. I briefly touched on this in my presentation, but Karen Bates was the EFL teacher that really built the curriculum that we used in our conversations, our heritage conversations. She also was the linchpin for the network of folks that we needed to be able to bring our participants into the study, into the project. And she would not have been able to do all that. Was a lot of work, and she would not have been able to do that without the stipend that we could offer her through the grant. So it just simply wouldn't have happened without ESC support in that way. And as a result, we've formed a longer term partnership so that we're going to continue this in other kinds of curriculum contexts as well. So it really laid the groundwork for the future as well.
That's really good to hear, because to be able to co-create projects does mean we need to be able to provide resources for that to happen. So thank you. The last question, and some of you in your presentation certainly brought this up, was how are the results of the grant shared with both academic and community partners? Because one of the things we are very concerned about, especially with our faculty, that we can't just give away this information, but there needs to be a win-win, right? There needs to be a balance that as academics we are gaining and the community is gaining. So does anybody want to speak to that in any way?
I can start. Sorry, go ahead.
It'll be quick. We actually presented yesterday in a virtual presentation on the project and what it meant to us in the community. But yeah, so, and then for the community, they were like really big partners. They did all the registration for the program, and that actually made our process through the IRB a lot simpler. So we're very grateful. And so as part of that, we do have to come back to their research team and present, but we do an annual report to the school board on our activities in the community. So it will also be shared there.
Oh, great. So when you first said, I thought maybe you were presenting here, but you're presenting in the community and the importance of that. Yeah, very good. Thank you. Maru, you had a talk.
Yeah, so similar to Patricia, we're also going to present actually at the State Extension Conference next month, our community partners and myself on the project, and with the not only to share the results and the impact of the project, but also to see if other counties in North Carolina would be interested in implementing the curriculum as well. In addition to that, sharing impact reports and working on the journal article, which is currently in review. And then beyond that, at the end of the curriculum, youth have developed stories that they shared. And some community members came to listen to those stories, and it was really done with the intention of using those stories as an entry point for collaboration and community engagement. And so that was one of the ways that that community partners could share in the results of the project.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, excellent. Michael, and then Joe.
Yeah, so I'll just briefly share two examples. Number one is we have an annual research day sort of conference for students at my university who are doing some kind of research. And so my students were able to present the preliminary results during that conference, which made it available to everyone in our university community. So that was a really great opportunity for them in their professional development and also for getting the word out about what we're doing. The second example is we've submitted a manuscript for review in the Journal of Community Engagement in Higher Education. And it's a case study, and the authors include myself, obviously, but also Karen Bates, who I mentioned is the EFL teacher, and also one of my undergraduate students who really took the lead, a lead in making this possible also. And then also one of our participants, our ELL participants, who was instrumental in being able to recruit some of our other participants. And she was just an amazing participant. And so we brought her on board in the publication as well. So we have our community partner represented, an undergraduate student represented, and one of our participants.
Excellent. Joanne, did you want to weigh in?
Yeah, just one thing that I've been really thinking a lot about is beyond sort of like the presentations and publications that we are, doing as part of our job as academics, like really trying to figure out like who are the audiences that youth want to share their work with. And I think like, their families and teachers and that kind of thing are one audience that we are trying to share a little bit more strategically the work that students are doing. But also students have told us they're really interested in sharing their work with other youth who are doing similar work and projects. So we did team up with some folks at other institutions to put in a proposal for AERA, for example, where we're hoping, it's challenging though, right? Because we have to try and get funding to get kids to be able to present and engage, but also just trying to think about as we continue in the work, how might we create some opportunities for, really honoring the audiences that youth are interested in sharing their work with as well.
Yeah, so well, thank you all. I'm so happy to hear that this grant has helped you with your Engaged Scholarship on your campus, with community partner building relationships, and that you are thinking about this win-win that you shared in academic spaces and in community spaces. So thank you all, and I hope you continue to build on this work as you move forward. So I want to thank our audience members, and I don't know if anybody has any thoughts or questions, or if any of our presenters had any other questions or comments. If not, thank you all. Enjoy the rest of the conference. I think we're at the end, but we had an excellent ending with your presentation. So thank you all, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you.